Spanish settlers built the Mission San Antonio de Valero, named for Saint Anthony of Padua, on the banks of the San Antonio River around 1718. They also established the nearby military garrison of San Antonio de Béxar, which soon became the center of a settlement known as San Fernando de Béxar, later renamed San Antonio. The Mission San Antonio de Valero housed missionaries and their Native American converts for some 70 years until 1793, when Spanish authorities secularized the five missions located in San Antonio and distributed their lands among local residents. Beginning in the early 1800s, Spanish military troops were stationed in the abandoned chapel of the former mission. Because it stood in a grove of cottonwood trees, the soldiers called their new port El Alamo, after the Spanish word for cottonwood, and in honor of Alamo de Parras, their hometown in Mexico. Military troops, first Spanish, then rebel and later Mexican, occupied the Alamo during and after Mexico's War for Independence from Spain in the early 1820s. In the summer of 1821, Stephen Austin arrived in San Antonio along with some 300 U.S. families that the Spanish government had allowed to settle in Texas. The migration of U.S. citizens to Texas increased over the next decades, sparking a revolutionary movement that would erupt into armed conflict by the mid 1830s. In December 1835, in the early stages of Texas' War for Independence from Mexico, a group of Texan or Texian volunteers led by George Collinsworth and Benjamin Melham overwhelmed the Mexican garrison at the Alamo and captured the fort, seizing control of San Antonio. By mid-February 1836, Colonel James Bowie and Lieutenant Colonel William B. Travis had taken command of Texan forces in San Antonio. Though Sam Houston, the newly appointed commander-in-chief of the Texan forces, argued that San Antonio should be abandoned due to insufficient troop numbers, the Alamo's defenders, led by Bowie and Travis, dug in nonetheless, prepared to defend the fort to the last. These defenders, who despite later reinforcement never numbered more than 200, included Davy Crockett, the famous frontiersman and former congressman from Tennessee, who had arrived in early February. On February 23, a Mexican force comprising somewhere between 1,800 and 6,000 men and commanded by General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna began a siege of the fort. The Texans held out for 13 days, but on the morning of March 6, Mexican forces broke through a breach in the outer wall of the courtyard and overpowered them. Santa Anna ordered his men to take no prisoners, and only a small handful of Texans were spared. One of these was Susana Dickinson, the wife of Captain Almaron Dickinson, who was killed, and her infant daughter Angelina. Santa Anna sent them to Houston's camp in Gonzales with a warning that a similar fate awaited the rest of the Texans if they continued the revolt. The Mexican forces also suffered heavy casualties in the Battle of the Alamo, losing between 600 and 1,600 men. From March to May, Mexican forces once again occupied the Alamo. For the Texans, the Battle of the Alamo became a symbol of heroic resistance and a rallying cry in their struggle for independence. On April 21, 1836, Sam Houston and some 800 Texans defeated Santa Anna's Mexican force of 1,500 men at San Antonio, near the site of present-day Houston, shouting, "Remember the Alamo," as they attacked. The victory ensured the success of Texan independence. Santa Anna, who had been taken prisoners, came to terms with Houston to end the war. In May, Mexican troops in San Antonio were ordered to withdraw and to demolish the Alamo's fortifications as they went. In 1845, the United States annexed Texas. For many years afterward, the U.S. Army quartered troops and stored supplies at the Alamo. The Alamo remained a symbol of courage, and in the Mexican-American Wars of 1846 to 1848, U.S. soldiers revived the "Remember the Alamo" battle cry while fighting against Mexican forces. The Alamo has been commemorated and everything from postage stamps to the 1960 film The Alamo starring John Wayne as Davy Crockett. In 1883, the state of Texas purchased the Alamo, later acquiring property rights to all the surrounding grounds. The Daughters of the Republic of Texas, a women's organization including descendants of the earliest Texan residents, has managed the Alamo since 1905. Today, more than 2.5 million people a year visit the Alamo. A 4.2-acre site includes some original structures dating back to the mission period. Here, I hope you enjoy our ride. Don't forget to watch my next episode and please hit the red subscribe button below for it means so much for me. Until next time, thank you so much.